Okay, and guys, welcome back. Here we go. It's Casino Companions. Okay, and I am your beloved host and producer and everything else. Okay, and cutting off the music, of course. So I'm Doc B, and as usual, we're here to talk about, well, what it's like to be a companion to somebody who likes to go gambling. So how to handle that kind of thing, and talk about, how you do things from your side of things. So if you do have a comment, CasinoCompanions@gmail.com, or find me on Facebook, Casino Companions on Facebook as well. All right. And there are some links up there, by the way, if you want to go check out some links of things I put together, just various casino related items, especially proceed from the standpoint of somebody who invests in casinos, not necessarily plays at them. All right. So, a nice little range of things. As we kind of run around and talk to each other a little bit here, put that aside. What do we want to talk about today? Well, what we're going to talk about is a couple things. First off, the word of the day, loose. Okay, so that is the word. So, loose. All right, and this again is one of those words, and it's like everything else in life, right? That if you talk about these little subsets of people, they end up with their own little vocabulary, and it gets a little confusing what things actually mean after a while. And this is one of those. So what does loose mean in the perception of the casino life? And it doesn't mean what you think it might mean. It's not rude. And it doesn't have anything to do with morality. And it doesn't have anything to do with screws being loose in your brain or anything. Well, that might be quite possible, or at least in your companion's brain. But no, has nothing to do with that at all. So loose in this case really just talks about mostly slot machines. It doesn't have to be a slot machine, but it's usually used in the context of slot machines. And loose just means it's a game which has been set up so that the player wins, at least fairly often. Now, it doesn't mean that they necessarily win a profit, right? But it's supposed to be a machine that is set up so that the player gets, a significant number of wins. And so when you hear somebody talk about loose machines, that's what they're talking about. Those will be the ones that they're telling you need to go play those because you're going to win at those. Now, again, that's a little bit of vocab, and it also can apply to table games, especially like carnival games that we mentioned way back that are new games on the casino floor. They may talk about them being loose. And they mean the same thing in that case, that they're games which are they're paying out at least fairly often, if not necessarily more than you put in. So from your context, guys, you would hope your companion plays loose machines or plays loose games, but no promises of that. And we'll talk at some point, guys. Casinos are set up to avoid that situation because they don't like to lose money either. So from your perspective, though, if somebody is telling you to play these machines because they're loose, nod your heads sweetly, smile and wave, right? Always be nice to them, but be aware that this comes back down to the whole question of statistics, guys, that it's more about a perception of whether a machine is loose or not. It's not really about whether it is or not. The casino knows if it is or not because they said it, but a lot of the times people will be telling you to play this machine because they happen to have won at it recently, all right? Or they've had good luck with it over the last, weeks or a month even. Statistically, it doesn't mean anything, all right? The machine is set at some certain rate. That person happened to have beaten the odds, if you want to call it that, and won at that machine. So they think it's a loose machine. It doesn't mean it is, all right? So anytime anybody tells you to go definitely play that machine because it's the best one or it's going to be loose, just, again, smile, wave, don't be mean about it. But be aware of the fact that it's almost certainly statistics that's being involved here, guys, and not so much a question of that machine being the only winning one on the casino floor. So we got that going on. Moving on here, guys, investing corner. So talking about casinos as an investment. So if you're in charge of saving money in your family, should you invest in casino stocks? All right. And one of those answers to those questions is actually the question of dividends. Okay, so dividends. And dividends are really, as hopefully you know, just a payment that you receive for owning the stock. It's a way that companies give back money to their owners, which would, of course, be these stock owners. So it's actually very common for a lot of companies to give out dividends. All right. Um, and there's a whole subcontinent of investors who only buy stocks which pay dividends. Um, it's kind of cool, right? You're earning money from owning your stocks. It's kind of like getting rent kind of on your stock. Um, Now, the heads up with dividends in casinos is that casino companies in general do not pay dividends, or they only pay very small dividends. All right, so these are not stocks that you're going to make tons of money on in terms of income from dividends. Um, there's a number of reasons for that. Part of which is just sort of classic investing tradition, but the main reason is going to go that these companies in general tend to um, be geared to grow, right? So when they do earn money, which a lot of them don't, but when they do earn money, they try to put it back into the business and try to grow the business. They would typically be doing that either by building new casinos, that used to be a big thing, or they would be doing it by adding on to their current casinos, or quite especially nowadays, trying to buy somebody else's casinos. So you'll see the casino companies in general, that is what they tend to do with their money. They don't tend to give it out as dividends. Um, at least not very large dividends. Sometimes they'll give you a small one just to kind of keep you happy, but that's very typical. So if you're a dividend type investor, casinos are probably not for you. All right, from a number of standpoints, one of which is you don't get very much in dividends. And the other point is I wouldn't trust a casino's dividend. All right, they're not highly committed to paying them. All right, and in general, if things go wrong, that will be one of the first things they're going to axe will be the dividend. So they're not exactly a high candidate for a dividend type investor. Now, we already mentioned in the past, though, and I lost the sheet here, guys, but I mentioned in the past that there are real estate investment trust, okay? Um, and these are companies which have basically just, basically they own the building and the casino pays them rent, all right? They actually have high dividends, all right? So if you really want to earn a lot of dividends off a casino, that's the way to do it, is you would buy one of um, these real estate investment trust to do that. And there are a number of them, there's at least three large ones, and then there's a bunch of other ones which kind of owns individual casinos. And I posted links to some of those guys on my links page, so feel free again to go check that out. And I'll try to put that in the show notes here too. So go free to check those out. Do I advise investing in those? Actually, yeah, kinda. I mean, again, I'm not your fiduciary. Please don't go run around trying to buy things claiming I told you to. Are they a bad investment? No. Okay. The odds of your casinos all going down and going out of business and not paying their rent is actually kind of small. All right. Um, so if you're into that kind of investing, that's not a bad choice. I mean, except for the recent events around COVID, that's one of the few times that the casino investment trust, real estate investment trust, have done badly, and that's just because all the casinos shut down and were not able to pay rent because they weren't earning any money. So think about that, guys. The warning again that I'll give you, if I haven't already, is going to be that if you buy one of these, do be aware that it's not these are not truly independent companies. Now, usually, again, when you buy into a company, you're assuming that the company is going to act in your best interest as the owners. You hope. I'm not saying it always happens; it doesn't. But you're hoping that the um, directors are actually kind of gearing things toward you, the owner, and taking you in consideration. With these casino investment trust, no, it's just they're captive companies. I mean, they're not called that. They're technically independent companies. All right, if you look them up, but every single one of them was spun off from a casino company, and every single one of them has that history with their original parent company, which essentially means that there tends to be a lot of hand holding going on. Um, so if you're buying this thing thinking it's going to be wonderfully independent and not do stupid moves, um, don't be so sure. Okay, it is quite possible the parent company will take advantage of that relationship and force the real estate investment trust to buy something which is pretty crappy, uh, just in the name of their previous history. All right. Are they good investment? I mean, they can have a high percentage dividend, yes, um, and I've earned quite a bit of money off of them over time. But be aware of the restrictions and the limitations of that. So dividends, guys, again, we love dividends. All right. It's more fun than actually going to a casino because you're guaranteed, well, you're not guaranteed to get a dividend, but it's likely you'll get a dividend. Unlike putting money into a slot machine. All right. So speaking of gambling, okay, so what's this? So in this little segment, guys, we always talk about things you see on a casino floor or around the casino, all right, that may have puzzled you, uh, or maybe not, but let's talk about things which may have. And the thing I want to talk about today is going to be the thing called Asian gaming. Okay, Asian gaming. And this is something which appeared in American casinos over the last few decades. Um, and if you look back in the movies, back in the 50s or so, it wasn't a thing then, okay? But it has appeared relatively the last few decades, and you'll see them in most, well, got to be careful here. These will definitely be present in casinos that are located in major casino hubs. So in the United States, that of course would be Vegas, of course, Atlantic City, and Tunica, Mississippi, which are large, kind of centralized areas of casinos, and probably also the Gulf Coast and Louisiana would probably also have significant Asian gaming. Your small local casinos, regional casinos, maybe. It depends where you're located. Um, and what will be sort of the key determinant, is there an Asian population? Okay. And and this all sounds horribly racist, and casinos are not known for their political correctness, but is there a significant community within your community of people who hail from usually China is what they're targeting, not always, but somewhere in that area of the world, so China, Korea, um, Vietnam, and Japan, all those kind of nations on that side, that um, if your community has a significant chunk of people that came from there, or who at least are descended from people who came from there in the first generation or so, um, if you got a bunch of that population there, then the chances are your casino will have a section devoted to Asian gaming. All right. So what is this? Well, this will be a section of table games, okay? And I'm thinking my way through this one, guys, because you will see on the casino floor, you're going to see on the American casino floor, at least over the last few decades, you will see a lot of Asian-themed slot machines. That's a thing, okay? So you're going to see all kinds of dragons, and I mean, it's just very, very Asian coloring and Asian theming, okay, in terms of some of these slot machines. And that makes kind of sense because that's been a major area where slot machine manufacturers have been trying to put their machines, has been in China, uh, and maybe Japan opening up soon. So, of course, these companies are making these machines, so it doesn't hurt to throw them in the United States as well. But I'm not talking about those. There's a lot of them, but we're not talking about those. I'm talking here about a section of table games, and these will usually be off by themselves. Okay, it may not be a very large section, but they'll be off by themselves. Sometimes in a completely separate room in the casino. So you may go past this place and you'll hear a very distinctive sound in many cases, of clicking and clacking, kind of like a poker room, but not really. Um, and that clicking and clacking is actually the sound of tiles that are kind of like domino tiles, that are being shifted around and kind of shuffled, as they usually are called. So you'll hear these tiles being clicked and clacked, in this room. And so what's going on in here, guys, is that there are a number of games which are, um, kind of trying. Are they originate? I guess you could say they're originated in Asia, but there are a number of games which have been very popular in Asian countries. All right, um, and these get a lot of attention. Now, we should be careful here, guys, because, um, and you can head down all these lines. You will also find in that section, almost inevitably, there'll be a bunch of Baccarat tables. Okay, and Baccarat, of course, is sort of a classic European game, but it is very, very popular in China, uh, and among just Asian gamers in general. So that is probably the number one game for them. So you will see Baccarat games being played in this section as well. But there'll also be a number of other games which are distinctively kind of Asian themed. Uh, some of these actually use tiles instead of cards, which look kind of like dominoes. There's another few which actually do use dice, and kind of a weird light up table. But what you'll notice in this section, guys, is that number one, most of the patrons, not all, most of the patrons are going to look Asian. All right. Um, you also notice most of the dealers, not all, but quite a few of them will also be Asian. And it's quite possible you will hear the players and maybe the dealers talking in Chinese, possibly Japanese, more likely Chinese, um, and um, and so forth. Now, you as a non-Asian person, assuming that's what you are, if you're an Asian person, you may be familiar with this already, but if you're a non-Asian person, you are welcome in these sections. The casino is not going to tell you you can't go in there and you can't play. You can, all right? Um, you may not understand the rules, all right? These games have their own rules, all right? And they're actually no worse or better necessarily um, than the games that are out in the other section of the casino. Uh, there are a few of them which are actually fairly popular with Western players. The one that's probably most uh, popular with the Western players would be the game called Pai Gao. Pai Gao. Pai space GOW. Okay, Pai Gao. All right. And it's basically, usually it's a card game, can be done with tiles, but it's a card game. Okay. And we're not even going to try to go through the rules, guys. You can look it up. But it's actually very popular to Western players because it's a game which you can play with friends. Much like blackjack, it can run like 6, 7 players. Um, and what you do doesn't really have an effect on the player next to you. So it's a little bit like Baccarat that way. Um, and so it's kind of a friendly game. Nobody gets mad at each other, which is good. Uh, and what people really like about it is it's possible to make ties with the dealer. Unlike blackjack, where somebody always wins and loses, you can make a tie with the dealer, which means that you can actually end up playing a very long time and with tons of no winners, which means you sit there, which like that doesn't sound good, but it's actually good if what you're trying to do is not win or lose. What you're actually trying to do is sit in the casino, enjoy the atmosphere, talk to your friends, and drink a lot of alcohol. All right. So it's actually a very popular drinking game with Western players. So you will see a lot of them, especially Pai Gow tables. And for that reason, you'll actually see Pai Gow tables also within the regular section of the casino for that reason, because it's very popular. All right. So that's Asian gaming. You'll see those. Again, pretty much any of the larger casinos, especially in those central hubs, will have some form of an Asian gaming room. Um, and when you see it, run through and look at it. Again, there's nothing wrong with stopping by. It's always fascinating to watch the games, even if you're not going to play. And there's nothing against the rules about doing that, guys. Although we'll talk more about later about the etiquette of playing in a casino or walking through a casino without playing, which is more likely in our case. All right. So with all that said, guys, Hope you're out there having a great time. It is possible, it's not likely, but it's possible that the next one I'm going to do, well, I'll actually record in a casino, or at least in a casino hotel room. So that would be cool. So it may happen. So if it does, cool. If it doesn't, also cool. All right. And get out there, guys. Have lots of fun and be the best companion you can be. Bye for now.